What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to the Sooner Surge preview of the game live. We're about 40 minutes from kick there at Nippert Stadium. Don't forget to click subscribe, be a part of what's going on at the Sooner Surge here. As Cooper the Great said, it's almost that time. Can't wait. And before we get started really talking specifics on this game, let's talk about some notes that have already happened, guys. As maybe you saw, maybe some of you have seen, Cincinnati's going to be without one of their guys today, one of their dogs.
Yep, one of their biggest players, linebacker, one of their best players on defense. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. OU's without some guys too, as we've seen. Obviously Harrington's out, Bird's out. Which the Bird is going to be very interesting. With sounds like Troy Everett's getting the start there at left guard. Obviously, Caden Green will play a lot too. So. R. Mason Thomas sounds like he's still out. They got pretty good depth on the defensive end. So,
yeah, Pearson being out, as far as the run stopping could be a big deal here. I do look that McCullough is probably going to get the start, right, Brody? He's healthy, ready to go.
Yeah, probably McCullough and Bowen or Key. Maybe Key, but make a lot of sense to start Bowen.
Yeah, RSJ will get some good run today too, I believe, at safety, and that depth there. So, hey, this is the first game all year where I'm kind of like on edge a little bit, personally as a fan. I think it's a road game. It's a true road game. It'll be crazy environment, and I think we're going to learn a lot about OU today. This, to me, so far this year, we'll know later today if this team is kind of for real or if they're just still have issues,
Yeah, is OU going to be a pretender or a contender? I think that's the deal here. Andrew Rogers talking about Caden Green may very well be the most impressive young player we have. Agree with that, Andrew. And I don't know. I think the decision to go with Everett could just be maybe a true fresh thing with Caden Green. But I know Brody thinks that Green's probably going to play more or at least as much as Troy Everett there at guard.
Yeah, I do. I think Caden Green at left guard gives you a little bit more than what Everett gives you size-wise, a lot more. And I think that might help going up against this talented Cincinnati defensive line, just to have a bigger body in there. But we'll see how Troy Everett does when he starts the game. I'm not sure how long he'll be in because I think it's going to come down to Troy Everett plays well. They'll ride with Troy Everett, and if he starts making mistakes, they're going to put Green in. And they'll go with whoever's played better.
Yeah, and they put a lot on Green's plate, moving him to guard. Pretty much he's played tackle most of his high school career, and they saw enough in him to move him to guard and for him to learn that quickly. That shows you how much they believe in Caden Green and how good they think he's going to be because he's a true freshman, just like Peyton Bowen, who they've tried 3 or 4 different positions. So they trust Caden Green, and he's got the physical tools. He's got the athleticism to play guard. He's got the size. So I think he's going to be the answer, I think, personally.
Hey, and Brody, as we are talking on here, as you see guys that are maybe warming up that may have been question marks, why don't you go ahead and update us on those as you see them? But, guys, I'm really interested in the running back room, what's going to happen there today, who's going to get the nod and the start, and how much is OU going to try to run the ball? Probably a lot depends on how they decide to try to stop Oklahoma. If they're going to try to pack the box and stop the run and make OU throw the ball over the top. If that's the case, I hope OU takes some shots early and often.
Yeah, hey, I'm really excited to watch this game. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Oklahoma did their Walk of Champions, and Cincinnati was booing the whole time. So it definitely does look like a very fun environment out there.
Yeah, you could see it from Big Noon Kickoff this morning. They were out early. They're raucous. This is for Cincinnati guys. This is a big time deal for them, being in the Power 5, Big 12. They've been looking forward to this for a while now, and OU's going to take their best shot today. I don't care who's playing. If they have a guy out, it doesn't matter. And they're coming off a loss. That doesn't matter. They were 9-3 last year. They're a good team. Luke Fickell brought in really good recruiting classes, and most of those players are still there. They have talent. It's going to be a true test for this Oklahoma team.
Yeah, Jeremy, you mentioned the run game a little bit. I think this is the game where we kind of hopefully see someone start to pull away as the running back. Tawi Walker, Marcus Major have looked really – they've looked solid. Both of them have had their flashes. Javante Barnes has had his flashes. Gavin Sawchuk, we all know what he's capable of. So it's just going to be interesting to see. I know Levy said they're going to ride with the hot hand, which is exactly what I expect they'll do. It's just going to be interesting to see who the hot hand is today.
Yeah, as you can see, guys, we do have the Discord link there in the comments. They're rolling. The comments are turned on. Make sure you're commenting on here so we can have this discussion. We've got the super thanks on buttons. You're welcome to do that as well. But you're right, the running back room, and I hope we see more of the 2 running back sets. I think that would be something to see that we saw a little bit last week. But on the defensive side, I'm interested to see with Emory Jones and his escapability, way he can do that and escape. Is that going to be something that OU decides to spy on, or are they going to play kind of straight up on that, guys?
Yeah, defensive lineman Kelvin Gilliam has been added to the list of players who are out today.
Not a surprise.
Yeah, I think looking at the defensive line, I think a guy that you're going to see more of every single game is PJ. I think he's going to have more and more playing time. I think as the season goes along, you saw it last week. He came out, got his first sack, got a tackle for loss, and this is a team that's coming off 15 tackles for loss last week. I mean, we'll see a lot. We'll learn a lot about this defense, and if anybody's watching Big Noon Kickoff, I got to say something about Urban Meyer. That guy, why is he still on television, first off? Second off, you can't say comments like he said today. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't know if y'all heard it, but he said that OU was pretty bad last year, which we know. But he said they're probably going to be pretty bad this year too because basically Brent Venables kept all the coaches. He should have got rid of some. It was 1 year.
No, I don't even know why we're acknowledging that. That's an idiotic statement.
But what I'm getting to, Brody, is he also said Brent Venables needs to be a head coach and get his hands out of the defense. He said this year's going to have more hands-on defense. I want him to have hands on the defense.
He has had more hands-on the defense. I'll give you – you mentioned PJ. I'll give you 2 more names that you're going to see a lot of on the defensive line, in my opinion. That's going to be Marcus Stripling and Grayson Halton. Both those guys were very impressive last week. Stripling did a lot of really well. Grayson Halton, they continue to bring him in every third down to be the pass rush guy. So I think you'll see more and more of those 2 guys as well, especially missing R. Mason Thomas today.
Yeah, you have to make Cincinnati one-dimensional. I'm not sure Emory Jones can beat you in the air. But if you let this ground game get rolling a little bit, it could make for definitely a closer game than I know Sooner fans want. I want to win this going away, and I don't want to be messing around. But the environment, and if they get the ball rolling on the ground, they're going to be more difficult to stop, especially if Emory Jones gets loose.
Well, to me, that's the biggest key, like you said, because anytime you play an offense like OU's, the way to beat a team like this is to keep them off the field and get it to where if they don't have as many possessions, they get frustrated and they think they have to score every time. And so I think that's how you beat OU. And I think last year OU struggled with that sometimes when they didn't have the ball a lot, and when they would have it and be a 3 and out. So yeah, I think that's very important. And the run game is what Cincinnati does well. So you got to stop the run first and foremost. They've been great at it all year. Hopefully they can continue that today.
Yeah, the gap play. Look, OU should be more sound on defense because it's second year into the scheme. So I think those kinds of mistakes are going to be happening way less likely, and I don't expect a lot of those breakdowns today either.
Yeah, I don't either. I think they've proven that in the first 3 games. Now we'll see. It's a road environment. You got to be focused. You got to be gap sound, and you can't let. We had Anthony Mazzini on from ESPN previewing the game earlier this week. It's a great interview. Check it out. He's great insight into Cincinnati, but he was talking about for Cincinnati's side of it, and I think it goes with OU too. You can't get overhyped for this game with Big Noon Kick, everything that goes involved with it. You got to be. You got to stay sound on a lot of that. You can't overrun plays defensively. We've seen that happen many times in past years. I think the biggest key to me, you got to start strong. You start strong. This year they've done that a lot. I think the only game I wouldn't say they really started off strong would have been SMU, other than the kickoff return last week.
And This is a game, guys, where all week Venables has spoken on this. We've heard players talk about it. This is a game where you can basically say, this is who we are, identity-wise, in the trenches. Venables said this is a game that's going to be a trench battle, a trench war. So will OU be able to live up to that battle? Are they going to be able to win that battle in the trenches on the offensive side and defensive side, which has really been two question marks. Going into the season, we had heard the hype of the O-line. It had a possibility of potential of being great. Here's a chance where you can solidify that. Defensive side, same thing. How good can this defensive line be? They have a chance. I think Bothroyd today is going to step up. Bothroyd and Ford with their veteran leadership. I expect big gains from those two dogs.
Brent Venables listed Josiah Wagner as hopeful on Tuesday. Josiah Wagner is out there going through warm-ups, and he's fully dressed out. So that's a big one to have back. I know we haven't seen him play yet, and Oklahoma's corners have been very good so far, but Wagner is one who many considered a starter heading into this season.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hopefully he does get some, he, like you said, he was so hyped up in the offseason and even in the fall. So it'd be great to see him out there and get some run for sure. It'd be interesting to see on the running backs, Jeremy. You mentioned earlier with Tawee Walker, is he going to get the start again today? He didn't last week. Is he going to be back starting? Is it going to be Sawchuk, Barnes, Major? I mean, there's so much question mark in that aspect, I think. So I would hope that one of them starts to kind of, like Brody said, separate themselves. I think that'd be great, actually.
Yeah, and Levy's going to separate himself today, has a chance to. Yeah. OU's going to have mismatches. Jackson mentions Freeman getting a touchdown. They're going to have some mismatch opportunities. It's a matter of putting them in those situations. But one mismatch that Cincinnati's going to try to expose is the leading receiver in the Big 12 with 20 receptions. If they're going to put him against Woody Washington, or if they're going to try to get him in the slot and try to create some mismatches for him, because that's their go-to guy in the air attack.
Yeah, based on the pregame warmups, it seems like Key Lawrence will be getting the start at free safety, and Deshaun McCool will be getting the start at Cheetah. Troy Everett also working with the ones. So just like Gabe Bikard put on Twitter earlier, it does seem like Everett will get the start at left guard.
Anything offensively on running backs, Brody?
I'm not sure. Need to watch the running back a little bit more on this OU in the booth.
Key Lawrence is interesting because to me, he's a guy, he's played better this year, but sometimes he's one of those guys that gets lost in coverage a lot and or overruns a running play. So he's got to be really good. I think he's been good this year, but you got to be consistent, man.
You got to be consistent.
I think Jimmy.
Go ahead, Brody.
Yeah, I think Key's been really good. Just the consistency, like you mentioned. I mean, when you go back and watch that Tulsa game, you'll see one play from Key Lawrence where it's just like, wow, that's a great play. And then you'll see another play where it's like, I don't know what you're doing on that play. So you just like to get it a little bit more consistently. If they do, Key Lawrence can start the rest of the game. I mean, he's great. He'll be great at starting free safety.
Got to be consistent.
Can't play conservative.
Yeah, cannot be conservative.
Agreed.
Two games ago, Levy and company they were conservative against SMU a little bit. A lot of people felt that way. Even Jeff Levy attested to that. And then last week, you see him take shot right at the beginning down the field. So I expect Anthony to being unhitched on some deep balls early. I expect Nick Anderson also to be going down the seam some. And let's hope that OU does take deep shots early, or at least something down the middle of the field.
Yeah, and Jackson talked about earlier on the Sooner Surge, I think preview or earlier this week about Stoops. It's basically a family reunion there for Stoops, and I would expect him to get a tutty and have a good game as well. And then Heather just said it. Yeah, I predict Stoops to have a good game. Shorter passes. I mean, some of that stuff they use him for, even if you look back on the TU game last week with the motion stuff, you can't stop that. I mean, if it's one-on-one, he's going to beat you.
And that's what I'm talking about as far as mismatch. If they're going to lay off and let Stoops catch it at the line of scrimmage and get 4 yards before he's touched, you do it all game long. Stoops is a tough runner. The blocking has been good on the edge, on the outside from the receiving core. Emmett Jones continues to make a difference in the wide receiver core in that aspect as well. So I agree with Heather here as far as Stoops. Stoops, Freeman, I expect the receivers to have a big day in general, and Dylan Gabriel again to throw for well over 300 yards, guys.
Hey, for those watching right now, I would love your comments. Who should start at running back in your opinion? I mean, and what do you guys think?
Yeah. In the pregame warmups, the first person that trotted out there with what seems to be the whole first team was Marcus Major.
And I don't have to say much about the Major hype that I have. I've been a Major guy. He's battled some things, but you cannot argue that Marcus Major has not looked explosive. The guy has looked explosive when he's had the opportunity. I would like to see some of the Sooner running backs more in the passing game. As far as coming out of the backfield, Sawchuk is a guy. I agree, Dalton, that's got to get it going. That burst does not seem to be there like he had there, and he's coming off injury. He's coming off some things. He's kind of getting his feet underneath him. So maybe that's someone we see get it going a little bit.
Yeah, Sawchuk looked a little bit rusty, but hey, I agree with you, Jeremy. I've been critical of Marcus Major so far after that. What was it, the SMU game? But I'll give it to you. Major has looked like one of, if not the best running back on this team so far, and that's not saying too much because we really haven't seen what Barnes and Sawchuk can do. But I'm just going to be interested to see who does get it going today. I imagine Tawi should get some run too. I mean, not sure why he didn't last week. Guess that was to get Barnes and Sawchuk going. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the run game looks like.
Yeah, I think Sawchuk's actually going to have a big game, personally. I said that earlier this week. I think last week it was his first game. He was a little rusty, trying to test everything out after the injury. He's fully healthy. I look for him to kind of have a good game, in my opinion.
Regardless of who gets the carries, one thing that has to happen that OU has been just excellent on is protecting the football. These are games you can't have turnovers. Turnovers will turn the game. That's what they do, especially on the road. More likely to happen. The interception last week could have been an interference. Kind of Gabriel chunked it up there, but you got to protect the football. Cannot have turnovers on your side of the field or even into the red zone on the other side. Got to put points up in the red zone. Can't settle for field goals. These are all things that have to happen in big games on the road.
Yeah, and special teams has been great all year. It's got to be good again. You talked about red zone. That's somewhere Cincinnati struggled big time last week. I mean, they had a lot of opportunities. They moved the ball a ton, and then they just flat out didn't score touchdowns in the red zone. So you got to be better. You got to be better yourself than them in the red zone. And OU's been great at it this year, and you got to continue that. I mean, that's all there is to it. You're on a road environment. It's a tough game because it's a Big 12 conference game, which is still hard for me to believe it's a conference game. I still can't get that wrapped around my brain. It seems like a non-conference game. But you got to start strong. You can't lose these games in the Big 12 if you're wanting to play for a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, we got about 15 minutes till kickoff. Let's get everyone in the comments pregame score predictions.
I said mine on the Sooner Surge game time, but I went 37-20. I think that this is going to be a game that maybe OU does allow some points, maybe off of turnovers, but I think there's no way OU's not scoring above 35 points. But I do like Sammy's comment here about Jaden Gibson. We have not mentioned him yet today. Super freak mismatch for any team because of his size. And it's ironic we're saying this now. He does seem to have glue on his hands because there for a while it looked like he had butterfingers. And now this guy catches everything in sight. And he is a mismatch. He's a matchup nightmare, guys. In the red zone, whoever you put on him, no one's going to have his height if he can go up and get the ball. But here's the deal. Dylan Gabriel's got to give them opportunities. You can't just dump it down today because it's a bigger game and you're on the road. You can't settle. You got to put the ball in the air. You got to give these receivers an opportunity to make the big-time play.
Well, these receivers have caught just about everything thrown their way this year, whether it's a jump ball, whatever it is, they're catching everything. And you're right, Jeremy, you can't be conservative. You can't just go with the dump downs. If they got one-on-one matchups, you got to throw it to them, and they got to make the plays. That's all there is to it.
Any last-minute updates before we get off here from you, Brody, as far as what's going on in warm-ups, what you're hearing, anything to update us on before we get off here?
No, doesn't seem like there's anything. The injuries, there's no more other injuries that we haven't mentioned so far, but yeah.
Okay. Make sure, guys, that you join up for the post-game live that we will be having probably 20 minutes or so after the conclusion of this game. Join up again, just like you have. We'll have all the comments turned on. We want to hear from you, the viewers. So about 20 minutes after the game, we do see that many viewers saying that this is going to be scored in the 20s, that Cincinnati is going to put up over 20, which seems to kind of be the consensus here. I hope we're wrong on that. I hope OU's defense is exactly maybe what we thought it was leading into this game, but definitely going to be a test. Excited to get after this, to watch this matchup. Gus Johnson, Joe Klatt, big noon kickoff on Fox. Join up afterwards, guys. Excited for this. Boomer.
Boomer.
Boomer.